The mission of seeking peace, justice, and reunification of the divided Korean peninsula has been a centerpiece priority of the PROK Church in South Korea for the last decade. A small exchange delegation representing the Pacific Northwest Conference of the United Church of Christ was hosted by the Global Ministries Committee of the Seoul East Presbytery of the PROK. That's the Presbyterian Church in the Republic of Korea. Our host spent the week of May 16th through the 23rd of 2016 introducing us to a few of the deeply emotional issues related to peace and the struggle for reunification of North and South Korea. Emotions around those issues run deep, and they are complicated. Just outside a military checkpoint at the DMZ village of Chewan, we encountered a Buddhist monk along with his mother who had come from Japan. Reverend Dr. Ji-seok Jung, who prefers to be called Philip, said they had been instructed by their Zen master teacher to come to Korea.
You go to Korea and pray for peace and repentance. And then she did. She's doing every day.
Every day. The two have been standing alone, facing the ruins of the North Korean House of Labor Party, chanting, beating drums, and praying for peace. They've been coming here twice a day, in the morning and afternoon, every day, for nearly 3 years. An information billboard at the site says the building was used to strengthen communist politics and control people before the Korean War. For 5 years, the billboard said, North Korea ruled this area, committing numerous brutal acts such as torturing and killing people. The billboard says the building was so notorious that people used to say that anyone who goes in there never comes out intact. Philip Jung is the director of the Border Peace School, an academy near the village of Chewan, that's 56 miles north of Seoul, inside the demilitarized zone. The DMZ is a 2.5-mile wide zone stretching 155 miles across the middle of the Korean peninsula. It's at the 38th parallel, dividing North Korea from South Korea. Chewan is the site of one of the bloodiest battles of the Korean War, where a battle for possession of a hilltop known as White Horse would change 24 times during attacks and counterattacks. The Border Peace School operates a program in partnership with the United Methodist Church adjacent to a South Korean Army outpost overlooking North Korea. The academy offers a 3-year graduate diploma in peace studies. Faculty come from as far away as Northern Ireland, Costa Rica, and the United Nations Peace College in America. Our travels brought us next to a protest demonstration and rally in Seoul, across the street from the Japanese embassy. It's been going on every Wednesday for more than 24 years, since January 1992. The Guinness Book of World Records has it listed as the world's oldest rally on a single theme. On this day, hundreds of people, including school students, nuns, monks, and activists, were participating. One very elderly woman there, we were told, was from the Philippines. She was one of the few remaining survivors who had been kidnapped and conscripted by Japan to serve as a sex slave for Japanese soldiers during World War II. The women, hundreds of thousands of them from all across Asia, were euphemistically referred to as comfort women by the Japanese military. They were forcefully and systematically raped by Japanese soldiers in an elaborate network of hundreds of so-called comfort stations stretching across the Pacific War theater in an extensive sex trafficking network. Demonstrators gather here every Wednesday around a golden bronze statue depicting a teenage Korean girl sitting in a chair facing the Japanese embassy. A little bird perched on the young girl's shoulder is a symbol of freedom and peace. There are 42 known comfort women survivors still alive in South Korea, all of whom are in their 90s. They're among 238 who had registered, 238 of an estimated 200,000 from Korea alone, most of whom were too ashamed to come forward and identify themselves. This demonstration was being held on the eve of an international conference of Asian nations scheduled for the next day regarding the World War II sex slave enterprise. Bridget Van Halter had traveled all the way from the Netherlands for this conference. The demonstrations have been coordinated by the Korean Council for the Women drafted for military sexual slavery by Japan. The council is demanding that Japan admit that the program of sexual slavery was a war crime. They're also demanding that Japan deliver an official apology, pay reparations to the few remaining victims, punish those responsible, and include the system of sexual slavery in Japanese history textbooks. The Council operates the War and Women's Human Rights Museum in Seoul. It's dedicated to the memory of the comfort women. It's a repository of elaborate records and photographs acquired from Japanese military sources documenting the network of comfort stations, including charts outlining the fees each soldier had to pay for sexual services according to the soldier's rank. Officers paid less. New tiles are added to the museum's memorial wall commemorating each woman when she dies.
They're building a military base in a beautiful place I've never been. It's on an island in the East China Sea. It's Jeju Island, island of peace. Jeju Island.
Jeju Island is a peaceful and bucolic island 60 miles off the southern tip of the Korean peninsula in the East China Sea. Residents here have been staging protest demonstrations every day for the past 9 years, angry about construction of a South Korean Navy base outside the village of Gwangjang. Construction began in 2007. 2 years after Jeju had been designated as an island of peace by the South Korean government. The 2005 peace declaration came after Korean President Roh Moo-hyun acknowledged the government's complicity in a brutal campaign to suppress the people of Jeju that happened in 1948 and 49. More than 30,000 island residents were massacred by South Korean Army and National Police under operational control of the U.S. military government. That's according to findings in a report commissioned by the Korean government to investigate the truth about the Jeju massacre. It was an unprecedented scorched earth eradication campaign to put down an uprising by rebel forces that were pushing for a national election to establish a new government in Korea after the end of World War II. An election for all of Korea, not just the American-controlled South. When the U.S. military command attempted to force a South-only election on the Korean people, the fiercely independent people of Jeju resisted and rose up against the government. U.S. forces accused Jeju Islanders of being pro-communist sympathizers. The American policy was to quickly clean out the guerrillas with overwhelming force to show Washington how Korea was handling the communist threat. The rebel uprising and subsequent government suppression began on April 3, 1948, 4-3, a date since memorialized and declared as an official national memorial day for the 4-3 victims of Jeju. April 3rd historical markers are displayed all across Jeju, including this beach, where hundreds of islanders, including women and children, were massacred.
Hundreds of people were killed here.
시체가 피가 나서 이 바다에 빨갛게 피가 쏟아져가지고 빨갛게 여기가 막 형편없었어요.
And the blood flowed to the sea, and all the sea were red.
Critics say the Jeju Navy base will serve as an outpost for the U.S. Navy to project power against nearby China by controlling the shipping lanes in the region. It can also become a main staging area as tensions with China increase.
Conflict with China is soaring, then the more soldiers will be stationed here.
The legacy and lingering pain of the Jeju massacre is not far below the surface as island residents stage daily protests against the new Navy base. Chants from a roadside mass conducted by Jesuit priests are heard daily. Some of those priests have been arrested. People gather daily to taunt security forces which are videotaping their activities as they dance and parade down the roadway toward the base main gate. We're told that some on this day would likely be arrested for participating in this demonstration. PROK pastor and social activist Reverend Bora Lim has been arrested 4 times, including this arrest in 2012.
Because we need peace. So we want to keep Jeju Island as a peace island.
She says she was arrested while participating in a prayer meeting in the roadway, blocking construction trucks. A Jeju 4-3 Peace Park has been created to remember the victims of the massacre. These cemetery gravestones have been erected to cherish the missing who have no grave or gravestone and provide bereaved families a place for memories. A memorial shrine with the names of 14,000 victims has been created. American commanders reportedly called the scorched earth eradication of the people of Jeju, who were thought to be communist or communist sympathizers, a successful operation.
Now I'm crying for a beautiful place I've never been. It's an island in the East China Sea. It's Jeju Island, island of peace. It's Jeju Island.
When I visited Korea in 2012, I learned the story of the Reverend Sang-Yul Han, co-pastor of Gobek Church with his wife, Reverend Kansil Lee, in the city of Jeju. At the time, Sang-Yul was serving a 3-year prison term for having traveled to North Korea without permission of the South Korean government. He had gone there to explore creation of avenues of communication to open channels for discussion for the reunification of North and South Korea. On his return to South Korea, he was arrested, tried, and sentenced to prison. Now, 4 years later, I met Sang-Yul for the first time, a deeply emotional and compassionate meeting, giving me a huge bear hug at our first meeting.
You're my hero. I have so admired the story that your wife told me when I was here. And ever since that time, I have wanted to meet you. And I'm so happy that I was able to come here and do that. It just it warms my heart to do that. Can you explain to me why you decided to go to North Korea in the first place?
처음에 왜 북에 가기로 작정을 하셨나요?
예, 저는 크리스찬입니다.
I'm a Christian.
하나님 뜻이 이 땅에 이루어지기를.
He thinks the God's will is the democracy more than tyranny.
All right.
Tyranny and
Okay.
the peace more than war.
All right.
And the reunification more than division.
As we headed back to our cars after dinner at a small restaurant that evening, Sang-Yul held my hand tightly, with our fingers intertwined. As we departed, he touched my chest, then his chest, and said our 2 hearts had come together as one. The moment nearly brought me to tears. " 2013 was the 60th anniversary of the founding of the PROK, a church that says it was called into existence to affirm its prophetic role in society, as well as equip its leaders and members with a contextual understanding of the Bible, so that the gospel could be truly lived in the present. Issues of peace and justice have been the foundational centerpieces of the PROK's purpose and sense of social justice mission. That same year, in 2013, the World Council of Churches adopted a resolution calling for peace and the reunification of the Korean Peninsula. The resolution included a concrete recommendation to replace the Armistice Agreement of 1953 to end Korean hostilities with a peace treaty. Without such a peace treaty, the 2 Koreas are still technically at war. In view of that resolution, and on the anniversary of the formation of the church, the PROK has started a program of special prayer and worship services, held every Monday night, praying for peaceful reunification of Korea. Those services began in March of 2014, and they have been held every Monday night since. They will continue to be held every Monday night until the day of reunification. The PROK believes that peace building should be a global enterprise, shared in close partnership and relationship with churches and Christians not only in Korea, but around the world. To that extent, the Sunday before August 15th has been designated as the Sunday of Prayer for the Peaceful Reunification of the Korean Peninsula. That Sunday this year in 2016 is August 14th. The PROK is also calling for an end to joint United States and Korean military exercises, concerned that live fire drills and missile launching and the demonstration of military power could put the peninsula and the entire Northeast Asia region at the brink of war. Reflecting on our visit, I couldn't help but feel a sense of the anguish many people are feeling in Korea, a people who have lived under one form or another of oppression since the beginning of the Japanese occupation in 1910. It's clear many continue to feel betrayed when their island of peace has been transformed into an island for the machinery of war. I could feel the angst of the women who had been kidnapped and forced into sexual slavery, women who were continuing to hold out hope that perhaps someday Japan would acknowledge their pain and apologize. And I was deeply moved by the passion of an activist pastor imprisoned for doing the right thing, for seeking ways to bring about reunification. Regardless of one's perspective, the issues are complicated. Our time in Korea was a living example of understanding how we are all people of God, related to one another more intricately than we might have ever known or imagined, living in a world together, singing together, praying together, being the church together, learning about and experiencing different cultures and new traditions, and knowing that we are all each a gift in God's creation. And so it was in that spirit, during our rousing closing worship together, I was presented with a harmony stole as a visual reminder that all of God's people are called by God to live in harmony one with another. There's a line in the hymn, In the Midst of New Dimensions, that says this: "As we stand in a world divided by our own self-seeking schemes, grant that we, your global village, might envision wider dreams." That's my prayer as we continue to be partners and friends all around God's world.